The Pelicans clinched a spot in the postseason, but after their loss to the Spurs, I'll explain why this season is a disappointment no matter what. And it should put Willie Green and everyone on the hot seat. It's a bonus episode of Locked On Pelicans, an angry cast episode of Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, a bonus episode of Locked On Pelicans, the daily Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this New Orleans Pelicans team, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all with a bonus show, and this is going to be an angry cast. After losing to the San Antonio Spurs, something there's no reason to do, 111-109. Yeah, this Pelican season is officially, in my opinion, a disappointment, and I'll explain why, and it goes beyond what you might think. And it also means they need to evaluate everything. David Griffin, Willie Green, the players, everyone should be on the hot seat after this loss. That's how bad this was and how bad and quickly this season has turned. And then we'll talk a little bit about the game, CJ McCollum and his performance in that as well. So, of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We are the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know, making sense of this loss to the San Antonio Spurs. But look, the season's not over. We'll get into that part in a second, though. Just super disappointing. Let me know in the comments down below how you feel after that Pelicans loss. Obviously, it's not going to be good, but give me your initial reaction. So I want to start with this. And be very clear on this. The season isn't over. It's not over. There's still 5 games left to go. It literally is not over. It's a bit of a joke. You also have at least one play-in tournament game left. There's a chance to make the actual playoffs no matter what seed they finish with. Keep that in mind. It's not actually over. There are still things to play for, and anyone telling you that it's over might be just being pessimistic, but there's actually ways for them to go and get into the postseason. But I'll tell you this. You could win the the play-in tournament. You could just get in as the 6th seed. Let's say something miraculous happens over these final 5 games and they get in. This season, no matter what, though, is a disappointment, and this loss to the San Antonio Spurs, the sprinkles on top, the icing on the cake, whatever kind of analogy, metaphor, whatever they are. I don't even care right now. I'm so angry after this loss. So the season is not over, but it is a disappointment. If you're an everydayer of Locked On Pelicans, if you've been listening to me all season long, I talked about how at times it was a good thing the Pelicans hadn't reached their ceiling. They hadn't been playing particularly great. There was room to grow. That's a great thing. But I said it's only a good thing if you get there. And I specifically and repeatedly said if they get there, because it wasn't certain that they got there. They haven't gotten there. And it's capped off by this loss to the San Antonio Spurs. You can talk about Zion being out. You can talk about Brandon Ingram being out. You can talk about Jose Alvarado being out. It doesn't matter. The San Antonio Spurs are 40 games under 500. They just shut down Jeremy Sohan and Devin Vassell, 2 of their 3 best players. Yeah, they have the Rookie of the Year in Victor Wembanyama and a guy that could be a Defensive Player of the Year, but you were up 10 on this team. And you still lost because you couldn't find a way to close. And we'll get into more of that in the next segment here. But the Pelicans were up by as many as 15 in this game. Come on. This Spurs team is crap. They're bad. And you just lost to them. You got punked. You couldn't even get a shot off on the final possession when you're down 3. More on that one in a minute in the next segment when we look at Willie Green, right? There's no reason to lose to the Spurs. There's 0 this season. This is a disappointing loss. This has been a regular thing, though. You know, trust me, when the season ends, I already have the show planned out. Someone else can steal this too if they want. The Pelicans have no one to blame other than themselves. You can say the refs have been bad this season with Zion. That's true. All these other things. They only have themselves to blame. How many games have they blown a double-digit lead in? How many? It's like 14 or 15, I believe, is the number. They've also been healthy this year. Zion has played 65 games. Brandon Ingram has played the most games in his career since his rookie year. Everyone has been healthy, but you've also had highly paid players not delivering. You go from the 4th seed to the play-in tournament, and now maybe even not hosting a play-in tournament game potentially over the span of a few days. This is unacceptable. You had glaring issues that you could have addressed somehow, some way at the trade deadline, and they tried, admittedly, with that. You haven't seen growth from this team like we would have wanted. More on that with Willie Green in the next segment here. But overall, this season, because they did not reach their full potential, and look, even if they get healthy and win some games, you shouldn't be in the play-in tournament. Fluky things happen in the play-in tournament. Being in the play-in tournament is not good. We all said that it was 6 seed or better. You've had health. I think expectations, as I've long said, if you're an everydayer, need to be adjusted as the season goes on. Yo, you've been healthy. The 6th seed isn't it. Not with Zion playing 65 games, not with Brandon Ingram being as good as he's been and playing more games since his freshman year, rookie year. I can't even think straight. It's a disappointment. Blowing the leads, not growing, not taking care of home court, not being a very good home court team is just stunning to me here. This is a disappointing season. This loss clinches it. You had ways to salvage it, and they didn't do it. They did not show up like they needed to in this game overall. They were decent in the beginning, but not nearly as good. And just what a disappointing way to just let the air go out of your sails. But again, the season's not over. Don't think it's over. And I got something coming for you on Monday, by the way, about that. We're going to have some fun. We're all going to get together and be okay. We love basketball. There's things to look forward to no matter what. But it doesn't mean just because the season is not over, and it's not over, it's still a disappointment. You could call it a failure. It could be even worse than where it is right now, too. There's still potential for all of that. So let's look at Willie Green. We got to look at Willie Green because, and it's not just Willie. We're going to look at everybody here. We're going to look at everybody, top to bottom, players all the way, or front office all the way to ownership all the way down. Because they need to evaluate everything and everyone, but we're going to start with Willie Green. Yeah, this loss should put him on the hot seat, and I'll explain why. That's coming up here next in today's bonus episode of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Robinhood. Did you know that even if you have a 401k for retirement, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from other retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is only good through April 30th. Get started at Robinhood.com/boost. Subscription fees apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024 validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRAs and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC member SIPC is a registered broker-dealer. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. We're going to have something for you before the in-season tournament because that's what it's looking like it's going to be for the New Orleans Pelicans, which makes this season and what we're talking about in today's show a disappointment. No other way to cut it, especially losing to a team that you had no business losing to whatsoever. And in the fashion that they did. The Spurs had a miraculous game winner. It's one thing. To not even get a shot off at the end of the game, to not even have the right personnel out there on the court for that in the first place. What are we doing here? Unacceptable. It's a disappointment because of that. So let's get into this, right? Here's what I think this means for the team in the big picture. Everything needs to be evaluated. Ownership on down. Now, you can't really evaluate ownership. It's not like you can go get a new owner, but they need to look at themselves and be like, man, we need to spend more. Simple as that. Simple as that. Could have gone into the luxury tax this year and maybe avoided some of this. They better do it next year is what it means. The front office, they knew the center position has been a problem and was a problem going into the year. Did you make an upgrade? Did you do what you could? Now, there's limitations, and certainly I know that they tried and had offers out there for other guys and things like that. Couldn't get a deal done. I don't know. It's your job, right? Like, it's your job to do that. And you didn't. And that's leading to problems right now in a crucial time of the year that's seen you go from the 4th seed to the play-in tournament. It's on head coach Willie Green, right? Gus Cattingill was texting me after the game. Let me find some of the texts here where we were talking about it, right? I said they needed to do it. So let me start with this with Willie Green, right? On his part before we go into some things. I don't know if he needs to be fired yet, but there need to be some changes and you need to demand those out of him. This is accountability. I don't think you necessarily have to fire him. The defense is good. They were at one point looking like they could win 50 games. In theory, they still could. They've improved every year under his tenure, but there are problems there with him as your head coach. And that needs to change, right? The big thing to me is I don't care about him not backing up the players and all of that. From what I understand, some of the players aren't thrilled, but I think that's more losing, right? Winning kind of fixes everything here. The bigger thing here with me with some of this, right? Like I don't think he needs to get fined or whatever. None of that's going to do anything ultimately, right? The big thing to me, though, is where they've lacked growth in certain areas. The offense hasn't gotten better. They got just stagnant in the second half. Ball was moving a little bit in the first half, and then no one did anything other than CJ. More on CJ in the next segment because it's a mixed bag of a game. I want to be critical of him, but I also understand it. And we'll talk about that coming up next, right? But things just got stagnant there in the second half. No ball movement. Do something about that. How many times have we seen that happen this year, right? You're the coach. That's on you to fix. Hasn't at all this season, right? Execution in the fourth, that kind of ties to that. That hasn't gotten better. I was there with a buddy in my season seats, and they're going into that final possession where they need a three to tie it. And he looks at me and goes, what are the chances they don't get a shot off? Like, you could call that they were going to just have a botched final possession. And they did. Right? They did. They didn't even get a shot off when you have to take a three. But here's it. You have Matt Ryan on the court. You had a non-shooter in Dyson Daniels on the court. Now he's shot it somewhat well recently, but come on. Is that who you want taking the three? Like absolutely not. That is not at all who you want taking a three-pointer in the final possession. Everyone was scared to shoot, right? So you're lacking that there. Right? You've lacked the comeback wins when they're trailing going into the fourth and haven't won a game this season. You've had all of the blown leads that they've had too. You had him not figure out what to do with Jonas or Jonas or Larry Nance Jr., right? That's on coaching here with a lot of that. That didn't improve. There are some good things there, yes. So I don't know if you need to, move on from head coach Willie Green, but I don't think you should for sure say that he's going to stay. There are other coaches. I have long said, I think 5 guys help you win. 5 guys actively cost you games. Everyone else is somewhere in the middle. Right now, though, if you're looking at those 20 coaches in the middle, I'd probably put Willie Green on the bottom 10 of those. There are a lot of good things there, but there's also a lot of bad with him. And then it goes to the players here, right? It goes to the players here too. Zion has not a broken finger, not a torn ligament, a finger contusion. It's the biggest game of the season you don't play. I'm not going to criticize him really for that. If you're hurt and it's going to make you not effective, that's not a good thing. Simple as that, right? Like, guys are hurt. I trust them on this. I believe them on this. If they don't feel they can play or contribute, that's fine. Okay. But sometimes just a lack of basketball IQ from guys out there on the court, right? Not knowing what to do. Some of the passes that Larry Nance Jr. had in this game were awful. That led to turnovers here. Guys not moving. Guys being scared to shoot. What was up with that in this game? They just weren't ready for the moment. The players were not ready for this moment. Najee Marshall took 2 shots and kept passing out of open looks every time. Since when does he do that, right? Jordan Hawkins is put in there to go shoot the three, and he got some run 18 minutes, just took 4 shots, right? As a whole, and this is on the coaching staff and players too, right? The reason they don't shoot a lot of threes is because Zion and Brandon Ingram use the majority of your possessions. And Zion's not a 3-point shooter. Brandon Ingram just doesn't take them. You took only 29 threes. That's below your season average. And you didn't have the guys that don't take threes out there. Take more threes, and they didn't do it. Herb Jones, 1 of 2 from 3. He's been a good 3-point shooter this year. Draw plays for him or Herb shoot, right? Trey Murphy, 1 of 6. Now, CJ wasn't looking for him and interested in getting him the ball at times, so it is what it is. But he went 1 of 6, right? Dyson Daniels, 1 of 2. Shoot the ball. Najee Marshall, 0 for 1. Matt Ryan played 10 minutes, 0 for 1. 29 threes from your players, from your coaching staff. in a game where you need to shoot threes. They made 9. The San Antonio Spurs made 17, right? It's an 18-point, no, it's 8 times, it's a whatever the math, 24-point difference. I can do math. 24-point difference from the three-point line. And you know that this has been a problem. And look, if Zion was out there, different story. Zion and BI out there, 29 threes, that's your number. When they're both not playing, that's tactical and that's basketball IQ on the players not knowing what they need to do. It was unbelievably disappointing to see this team just unravel. That's why this season's a disappointment. On Willie Green, look, again, I think 20 coaches in the league more or less don't matter. But here's the thing the way you could view it. If you don't have one of those top 10 or top 5 guys, go and try and find one of those 5 guys, right? Look at the Orlando Magic and Jamal Mosley's their head coach. He's good. He is good. Find a guy like that. I can name you a ton of assistants or others that I think could be great coaches. Now, you might get it wrong. Then find another one. That's what you're supposed to do here, right? Look at Joe Mazzulla and how he has that team playing and just the tactical awareness and stuff like that. Look at Greg Popovich on a San Antonio Spurs team that is 18-58, now 19-58. Getting things done, making counters, right? Like, it was just so disappointing in this game to see that. Just unbelievable, right? They need to evaluate everything. You can't do this again. You cannot do this again, particularly in a season where you've had everyone be healthy. This is not okay. This is not okay, right? You need to look at the pairing of Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson at this point. You have to. Is there a better way to go about this? Maybe. You got to look at the coaching staff. There need to be demanded changes here. You need a new center. You have to go and get it. We talked about it in yesterday's show. Why it's a good thing they're losing? Because you can't run from this, right? I would hope it wouldn't be this bad, but it is, and we're here now. You can't run from this. Changes have to be made. Is that firing Willie Green? Maybe. Or moving on from Willie Green? Is that different front office? Maybe. Is that different players? Maybe. I don't care what it is, but changes need to be made before next season starts. You have the draft picks for it. Go and do it. Now, the season's not over. We might still have some fun in the playoffs. I don't care. This season should have been better than what it's been. I don't care they didn't have Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson against the San Antonio Spurs. I do not care. There's no reason to lose that game. And in the way that they did. The fact that people in like the arena could just be like, oh, they're not going to get a final shot off. They're going to botch this. That's damning. It's damning. Coming up next, let's look at CJ and kind of his role in this loss and a couple of other things that really bothered me about this game. There's one part in particular that is it's the mind-blowing thing to me. I'll tell you what that was coming up here next in today's bonus episode, an angry cast of Locked On Pelicans. Right now, though, I'm excited to tell you about Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Other things to watch than the Pelicans who might disappoint you. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. And that includes all of us here at Locked On. Yeah, Locked On Pelicans is on there. They've got all the big pro leagues and all the big conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date in the latest world of sports. March Madness, NBA, MLB, something to take your mind off the Pelicans if you just want news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos. Check out Fire TV channels on the Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. To learn more, visit amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. There's a 2024 Nissan Rogue, perfect for city drives and great escapes. They have class exclusive Google built in, which is your always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. So gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, Google Play Store are all built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. The 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. There's also the 2024 Nissan Armada, which will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can seat up to 8 in first-class luxury and style, tow bigger, and explore further in the 2024 Nissan Armada. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, and the Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. And we are angry today. Are you angry too? Let me know in the comments down below. Give me your biggest disappointment this season or whatever you want to say. You could use this. It's a safe space if you need to vent. If you want to talk to me in person, I'm going to have some news for you on something probably on Monday that we are finalizing. I'm excited because look, it might feel like the season is over, but there are like actual games they are going to play, and there's a postseason, at least one game, maybe more, that they're going to play too. I don't know if you can truly salvage this year unless you get to like the conference finals or the NBA finals, but there's still going to be more games, and we're going to watch them because we like basketball and I like talking about it. You know, someone, to give you kind of some insight here, you know, was tweeting out when I was saying like, do y'all want a bonus show? And y'all said like, yeah, we kind of do and all of that. So I was more than happy to kind of do the show. I take this job, and it's a job, really seriously, but I'm also a passionate Pelicans fan and I like interacting with y'all and doing the show. I always say I do it for you. Right? So even in these losses, when people are like, I need a break, if you need a break, that's fine. But I'm always going to take this seriously. So if there are games left to go, we're going to look for good and bad things from there. I'm going to find what makes it interesting and tell you about it and try and make sense of everything going on with this team, even in these real bad losses like we saw against the San Antonio Spurs. So look, you might feel the season's over, but if there is a one postseason game to play, we are going to cover the heck out of it because it's what we do here at Locked On Pelicans and part of on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, sorry, that was like not a rant, but let's get back to this 111-109 loss to the San Antonio Spurs. A couple of things. I want to look at CJ's game first because I do find this really interesting. We talked about some of the problems from this where, you know, when we were saying there needs to be kind of like an evaluation out and then somewhat of an overhaul here. The Pelicans were scared to shoot. No one wanted to step up. Like it's just like the moment was too big for them, let's say. I don't know what the reason for it was, what the cause was for it, but the moment was just too big for them. And because of that, someone has to do something. And that person who was willing to do it was CJ McCollum. Now, I don't love some of the shots that he took and some of the play that he had, but I understand it because if no one is going to shoot, and Najee was just passing out wide open looks, wide open threes that he just didn't want to take, right? If no one's going to do anything and no one's going to move and they stopped moving in the second half of the game, right? Yeah, CJ's going to play hero ball and I get it, right? 3 for 29 isn't good. 4 for 12 from 3 is not good. But then someone else needs to do something and they didn't. So I'm glad that someone was just willing to go and do it. I don't love how he did some of that. And look, he's the highest paid player on the team this season. Like you've got to go and just deliver better. He knows it, but you have to. But at least he was willing to try because Najee wasn't, right? Dyson Daniels wasn't. Trey Murphy took some shots. Herb Jones played hard late, but was still at times a little tentative to shoot. You know, Jonas Valanciunas had a weird game in this one, right? 10 of 12, 26 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, but was real bad defensively, in my opinion. He had Devontae Graham scoring over him, right? The screens he set were illegal screens. Like, those were bad. The fouls and everything he was doing was not good. It's a weird game for him. But there was some tactical errors there when he got his fifth foul. They should have left him in. They shouldn't have pulled him to like save him. Just let him play till he fouls out. That I thought was a huge mistake because at least he was somewhat effective when nobody else was, right? Larry was not doing a good job here. No one was doing anything. Herb Jones, CJ gets a little tunnel vision and hero ball, but overall he's having a good season. And if no one's going to do anything else, I'd have no problem with him just grabbing the ball and shooting. I would have had no problem with anyone grabbing the ball and just shooting here. But no one did, so he did and is the guy. It's just unfortunate he didn't deliver in the way that we would have hoped. Some of those floaters down in the lane, those type of shots that don't really fall reliably, he needs to cut out and then look for other teammates. But lack of trust in them a little bit, I don't love there. There are a couple times he missed Trey Murphy wide open, and look, that's a better shot than some of those floaters were. But in general, look, if no one's going to do anything, do it. I've seen a lot of people saying, well, like no one moves because he has the ball and is pounding the air out of it. Somewhat, yeah. But Herb handled the ball in the second half a bunch and no one moved either for him. Just no one was moving. It goes to the coaching staff, that goes to the players, and that this isn't okay. So it was incredibly disappointing to see. It's just a weird, I don't know how to totally evaluate that game if no one's willing to do anything. So CJ just goes, fine, I'll do it myself, then has a bad game for it. Yeah, you got to deliver better. The results need to be better. But this was like a bigger overall failure than just CJ having a bad shooting game. You get what I mean? Let's go to the final play. There's two things I want to mention left here before. I don't know what I'm going to do after this. I'm going to go hang out. It'll be fine. It's basketball. CJ had a weird game. The final shot was just complete disarray. We just talked about it where my buddy was like, they're not going to get a shot off. And I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. How is Matt Ryan not out there on the court over Dyson Daniels? How? You need a 3-point shot. Put your 3-point... Hawkins was in, which was good. Put your 3-point shooters in. Simple as that. To not get a possession, a play, a shot is just mind-blowing. Here's the other thing that was so frustrating in this and kind of just speaks to the overall failure and why this season is a disappointment. When you look at the San Antonio Spurs roster, how many players you truly know that are good? Devontae Graham comes off the bench. He had 20 points. But do you know some of these other players that they played? Do you know who Blake Wesley is? Do you know who Julian Champagnie is? Right? Do you even know who Malachi Branham, who's a first-round pick, is? Maybe you don't know a lot of these players, and that's because they don't normally play and this team isn't good. Yeah, they have Victor Wembanyama. You know him. You might know Jeremy Sohan. You might know Devin Vassell. But Sohan and Vassell didn't play. You might know Keldon Johnson. He didn't play in this game. So they have a bunch of no-name guys. Those guys can be hungry, and sometimes this stuff happens. But here's the thing. The Pelicans couldn't even win the minutes when Victor Wembanyama was off the floor. And I think that is a big problem. That's what I'm getting to talking to about their roster. Wembanyama can carry him. He did, right? Got that kind of final block on Herb as he drove right into the teeth of that when they had a chance to actually take the lead when the game was tied. He's an incredible player. But to not win the minutes when he was off the court is horrific. Zach Collins, who's their backup center, was a +3 in this game. That can't happen. They have nobody on this roster. They were, because they're not anymore. They were 40 games under 500. And you couldn't win the minutes when their only player of note was off the court. That, to me, says more than anything else about this game. It says more about CJ. Or it says more than CJ's play. It speaks to kind of why this season's a disappointment. That is when you could capitalize and run this team out of the building. And you just couldn't get it done because of issues that are only self-imposed and self-created. And that's why Willie needs to be on the hot seat. David Griffin needs to be on the hot seat. Every single player needs to be on the hot seat after something like this. This was an unacceptable loss, and no matter what makes the Pelican season a disappointment, even if there's more. And I'm going to be watching. We're still going to do a show after all the games. And I'm going to have something for you in person, which is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it because there's going to be a postseason game, and that does matter. And I want to look at that. And we're going to approach this as we do every time, even if it feels like, and it does feel like the season's over, but it's not. There's more to go. We'll cover that. We'll talk about the good, the bad, what we learned from that here on Locked On Pelicans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with the bonus Angry Cast for you. Vent in the comments. Go ahead. It's a safe space. I appreciate y'all tuning in, and I'll be back with y'all on Monday to talk about, playing the Phoenix Suns. I actually have a note in my phone about something I'm really watching in that game. It's to do with Devin Booker. We'll talk about it on Monday, and I'll see y'all then.